What's my fortune? You've been reading the cards, haven't you?
I've been doing the accounts.
Come on, read my future for me.
You haven't got any.
What do you mean?
Your future is all used up. Why don't you go home?
Margos, I don't know if you can hear me over this piano music, but I'll get him out of there so you can't hear. I'll get him out. Away from that music. Be sure he doesn't see you.
I must be drunk. A minute ago, I thought you were Vargas.
Come on out, Hank.
What's that?
Come on out, Hank. I'm tired.
Who told you to come here?
I'm tired of waiting, Hank. There's some questions you gotta answer.
Question? Questions? I need another drink.
You had enough.
Hello and welcome to Book versus Movie. This is a podcast where we read books that have been adapted into movies and then we try to decide which we like better, the book or the movie. I am Margot P. of coloniabook.com and this is my good friend and co-host Margot D. of Brooklyn Fit Chick.
Hi, everyone.
I am very excited to talk about today's book and movie. I have a lot of questions, so many questions. But before we get to that, if you are new, yes, we do movies that have been adapted from not just books. We say book, it's called Book versus Movie. But look, we've been doing this for 9 years. And when the pandemic started, we committed to doing a brand new episode every single week. So, we're not going to do Joy Luck Club every single time. It's not easy. Mm-hmm. We're busy ladies. But we also love being here with you. So in order to make that work, we have decided that we're considering any film that has been adapted from any literary source. So it could be a short story, it could be a novella, it could be a magazine article, or even a song or a poem. As long as it's been adapted from some kind of literary source, we will consider it. It also means we're always looking for new ideas. And our listeners are so awesome even after all these years, we are always getting new things that we never even considered before, including today's episode. If you have ideas for movies that we could talk about with you here on the air, there's a few places where you can make those suggestions. You can meet other listeners of this podcast and interact with us on the internet.
We do have a basic Facebook page. Be sure to like it. All the episodes are posted there and you can interact with us there. But we're much more interactive truly in our Facebook group. And so it's a private group that you do need to join. We ask that the movie be the book or the song, magazine article, whatever is pretty easy to get our hands on. But also the movie needs to be streaming on one of the major streaming apps. Criterion doesn't count, unfortunately. I wish it did. It's another expense for some people. Anywho, this is, we also are on Twitter at Book versus Movie. You spell that out. Also on Instagram, Book versus Movie. And please follow us at those social media places. If you do use them, we'd really appreciate it. And we also have just an old-timey email, Book versus Movie Podcast. Spell it all out at gmail.com. Offer us your suggestions. Also, if you would like some stickers, we have a stack of stickers here for you. Wherever you are on the place of the planet of Earth, you send us your address and we will drop that in the mail for you should you be interested, or just send us your suggestions there. Thanks.
Yeah, we really appreciate your being here and joining us and we really do consider all of your suggestions in planning our programming for this show. Now, If you really enjoy the show, though, like really, 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 and you would like to help keep the lights on around here, you can also support us on Patreon.
Patreon. You just look up Book vs. Movie Podcast. We have all these episodes up there from 2021, and then previous to that. Excellent shows that we're really proud of. It's just that, some apps only have you put in a couple of hundred shows or whatever. But like Margot says, it also helps us pay for the books and for the movies and for the hosting costs and for the software that we need and things like that. So if you feel like that and you have a few bucks to spare, that would be amazing. Patreon. But if money is tight, and we totally understand that, if you could just leave a review wherever you get your podcasts, that includes Spotify now. You can just reply on Spotify if you like the show, or a few stars, or seriously, just tell a friend about the show. That would be amazing.
That's really the best thing is sharing it and bringing more people, which you do all the time. We see so many people who said, "Oh, I found out about your show from my friend so-and-so." Yeah. Now, today we haven't talked about Mr. Orson Welles for a very long time. It has been a minute. And I don't know that we've ever talked about this writer, but we're talking about a movie that this is one of those movies that all the film buffs love to talk about. People write their theses about this film. We're going to be talking about Orson Welles' Touch of Evil, which is based on the book Badge of Evil.
Right.
Which I think kind of gives away the plot a little bit.
Gee, who's the evil one?
Badge of Evil by writer Whit Masterson, who also wrote Kitten with a Whip.
Yes, is that Anne Margaret who was in Kitten with a Whip? Oh, yeah. It's two men. It's Wade Miller and Will Damer, I believe that's how it's pronounced. One of them passed away to a heart attack, and the other one lived a much longer life, but they were partners in writing over 30 novels, and they all have that L.A.
under the name. So just to be clear,
right.
Whit Masterson is not a real person.
It's a nom de plume.
He's a nom de plume for a couple of guys, of other guys.
And they wrote a lot of just it's songs. It's like Guilty Bystander, A Cry in the Night, All Through the Night, The Yellow Canary. Those detective novels that were really popular at the time would be kind of stuff like their pulp novels, that sort of thing. Very much LA based. And this story, it comes out in 1956, and it does pretty well. It sells pretty well, and so it gets sold.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by this book. It's good. It's very pulpy. It's very, I don't want to use the word trashy, but it's definitely after noir, after the noir genre, when we talk about Raymond Chandler and so on. But it's still kind of, it's definitely of that family tree. It's definitely in that lineage. It's not exactly like a mystery necessarily, but it is a snapshot of a very seedy world of crooked cops and drugs and desperate people. I thought it was pretty good. And I think the opening is super good.
The opening is great. I thought the middle part of it got a little muddled down. I got a little confused.
It gets a little mushy. It does.
It gets a little mushy for me too. For me anyway. I read it pretty quickly, but then I also forgot about it kind of quickly too. It doesn't have the stick-to-itness in my brain.
That's the pulp fiction thing. Is that you just it's like junk food. You're enjoying those Doritos while you're munching them down, and then later you're like, why am I hungry now? I just ate.
We always find new people, by the way, when we cover film noir. That's one of our most popular genre. And you'll definitely find that in our back catalog and on the Patreon page, by the way, if you're interested. This is sort of, I think, it's a fine novel. It's about intrigue. I mean, it opens with a dynamite explosion. A man's house explodes. He's a 50-something guy, tired. He has a daughter that's engaged to somebody he's not too thrilled about. It takes place in San Diego, by the way. We're both named Margot, and this Margot
it does.
There, my friend Margot lives in San Diego. I live in Brooklyn.
I do indeed. And it is even now, I mean, I think we can say there's a lot of being so close to the border. There's a lot of kinds of crime that happens in a border town that doesn't happen in other places so much. So it definitely has a flavor of that, not as much as the movie, which we'll get to in a bit, but there is an element of that having Mexico so close by where people can just run away from the law.
Right. So there's an explosion. We're not sure. We're not quite sure who did it, but it's somebody who had some enemies. And it's about these two police officers, San Diego police officers, that supposedly have a great record and are really great cops and respected. There's an assistant district attorney, Mitch Holt is our assistant district attorney. I guess the daughter, she's engaged to someone who's Mexican or part Mexican. Is that part of the reasons why her dad is?
I think so. There's it's not like super overt, but there is a little bit of like a racism. The dad doesn't approve of, there's something, and it doesn't come right out and say like, oh, he's Mexican or brown or whatever, and therefore the dad is against the relationship. But there's always, this whole book is a lot of like talking around
right
what's going on the whole time. And so as a reader, which is fun, but it's also confusing sometimes.
It's very, yes, we have the person named Ernest who confesses, and then he's sent to jail, and then the cops are trying to get this confession out of him. He does confess, but then this Holt is like, kind of like, this doesn't really make sense. Why would the guy do this? I don't believe it. And then we find out that McCoy and Quinlan are cops that are...
They're the cops.
They're the cops, and they're kind of these rogue characters that shock among shocks. They sometimes, bully people into confessions, and they take advantage of people, and they're not as squeaky clean as they come across. But getting them to admit their mistakes, and also, is the big chief in charge of it, and is the district attorney, is he clean?
Yeah, it's not clear. So what is clear is there is some kind of shenanigans going on with these two cops. It's a little too coincidental. Like, they just happen to find the exact piece of evidence they need to convict the bad guy. A lot of times. Yep. And it's not so clearly, like, somewhere there's evidence getting planted, but by who is in on it? Are they both in on it? Is it a conspiracy that they're in on together? Or is one of them responsible for the planting of the evidence and the other one is, they just start taking credit together for the capturing of these so-called criminals? It's unclear. Right. We do not know. But Holt, the district attorney guy, is knowing he's smelling a rat, right? And he's determined to figure out what is going on here, even if it means these two stellar cops with their amazing reputation get taken down.
Because what that would mean is every case that they brought in would have to be investigated again, which is always the reason why people don't want to do these things, partly because it's going to be too much work. What if we have a lot of people wrongly convicted? It's going to be mayhem.
Now, in the book, Holt, the attorney guy, his wife is Mexican.
Yes, Consuela.
Yeah, she is definitely Mexican. So the cops are a little like, oh, well, he's basically married to a criminal. Are you going to believe what this guy has to say? So there is an element, like I said, like, not nearly like there is in the movie, but there is an element of the unusual culture of a border town or border city. And similarly to the movie, also there's a plot point where Holt, the district attorney, his Mexican wife, is framed for narcotics. She's kidnapped basically and drugged and set up to look as though she's like some kind of a drug floozy.
Prostitute drug floozy.
Yeah, like brown people.
Yeah.
Are.
Unfortunately.
I'm Mexican American, by the way, for those of you who are new and don't know. I not only live in San Diego, I'm also Mexican American.
Right. He sends her and his daughter Nancy to Mexico to live on a ranch. And then that's when they get kidnapped. And there's all kinds of, they get drugged, and the wife especially is made to look guilty, but then they find Holt helps his wife to justice, brings the people who actually did the wrong things to justice. Turns out one of them, Barnum, exactly, the man who originally confesses, but dies by suicide. Excuse me. There's a couple of times when that happens, when people die, and they kind of just say, well, now we can't investigate them. Maybe that's for the best.
Oh well. I guess we'll never know.
Right? They're gonna. Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of left in that place of, all right, we've just found out these 2 police officers were corrupt. We're going to have to now go through all their back cases. We're going to have to clean out the department. It's going to be a lot of work.
Yeah. And just like in the film, the climax of the book, although it's reversed in the film as far as the characters in the book, you have Quinlan, who's kind of like the head cop, and then McCoy is his sort of partner. And these two have been on all of these very conveniently, like I said, with the evidence cases that they've quote unquote solved. And in the book, it's McCoy, not Quinlan, the head cop, who is the crooked one. Quinlan has been kind of blind to the fact that McCoy's been planting this evidence. He's kind of like just believed that the stuff just magically appears. And he finally realizes like, oh man, my partner's really crooked. And so Quinlan in the book is the one who is wearing the wire and gets into the argument with McCoy, gets McCoy to confess. And do they both get shot in the book? I'm trying to remember if it's like that in the book as well. Let me see.
But there is just like
no. So McCoy shoots. Okay, so they get in a fight. Quinlan is the not crooked cop. McCoy is the crooked cop in this scenario. McCoy shoots Quinlan, kills him, but they've got it on tape, him confessing to everything. So McCoy is taken in, and then McCoy also dies by suicide at the end. So everybody's gone at the end of the book.
Right. Consuela is released from jail and is rather sturdy. Like, I'm okay. Like, she just had a bad weekend.
She's remarkably okay.
She is like okay.
Much more than I would be.
She's very I can tell you, I guess. But she comes home and that's just the end of the story. And we have lots of stories that we have like that in film noir. I mean, it's always supposed to like reverse the expectations of what you go in with, and the person you trust is the person you can't trust.
True.
Right.
And right.
And it follows
it's a lot
those
of that.
tropes. And it's fine. I mean, it's fine for a novel. It was sold to, I believe it's Universal that took on the movie, Universal International. Yeah. They had a B movie section. B movies are just like the ones without all the top movie stars. They're tend to be a little bit made more on the cheap.
And, again, kind of like the junk food.
Yeah.
The fast food, if you will, of the film industry.
And there was a guy named Albert Zugsmith who was a producer there. Someone took a crack at the script. Orson Welles, who is our director. And once again, we understand people spend their entire careers on Orson Welles or just on this movie or their academic careers on these things.
Yeah, we're not those people.
Yeah, we're not those people. So please remember
Give us a
that.
break.
Yeah, just kind of remember that. But Orson Welles was sort of, Citizen Kane came out in 1941. He was 25 years old. It was this huge deal. He was considered a genius.
It is a masterpiece. Like, we're not arguing that. Like,
movie.
It's brilliant.
Yeah. I meet somebody occasionally, it's like, it's okay. I'm like...
Come on.
Whatever.
It is brilliant. It truly is. Yeah.
Visually, if nothing else. I
mean, on so many levels. It's so good. And his performance in it is really awesome. He's one of these figures that he's so brilliant and so talented at so many things. People kind of don't know how to think about him. They want to put him in a box,
right?
Put him in the director box or put him in the actor box. But he's
playwright
not that,
box.
Exactly.
Or theater box.
Or personality, celebrity personality box. So, at this point, he's already become sort of a quote unquote celebrity personality he's super clever. So he would be on talk shows and be very, very funny and cutting and everything like that. But he's also a brilliant actor. So he was, if I remember correctly, Margot, and correct me if I'm wrong, he was cast in this film before they asked him to direct. Is that correct?
Yes. So he was. So Charlton Heston, this movie is filmed in 1957. Charlton Heston was in the 10 Commandments. He had a big career. I have a story about Charlton Heston. My friend was working on a book, one of Charlton Heston's books, and she got to take him for his interviews around New York City. And she said to him, Touch of Evil is one of my favorite movies. I even wrote a paper about it for college. And he said, oh, I'd love to read it sometime. And my friend Jill is a very literal person, so she literally like had her mom send her the paper, like faxed it, and she gave it to him. He graded it very high, an A, and assigned it for her. And said, yeah, she said he was great, like full of stories and very charming. Anyway, Charlton Heston.
That's amazing,
right? You never know what happens when you talk to people, you know? Be a little vulnerable sometimes. It's okay. George Orson Welles, he was born 1915. By this time in the 50s, he'd gained a lot of weight. He has this reputation for being a pain in the ass, let's be clear. He's a perfectionist. He has a very big ego. He has big appetites. He's somebody that they said, like, as soon as he got successful, it was like going into the clubs like a movie montage and throwing money and dating all the most beautiful women and being the loudest and everything. So there's some people that didn't like him. They're like, yeah, you're a genius, but I can get somebody for half your price that won't give me agita. Like, that's basically the thing. So he was in between directing projects, and he kind of comes across the script and says, well, can I work on this for a week? And Zuck Smith says, yeah, fine. Just look at it. And then Orson Welles kind of rewrote the script and said, I'd like to play this character. And they had already had Charlton Heston. And Charlton Heston says, well, if we get Orson Welles, we have to have him direct it. And basically, Charlton, because he had that leverage, because he was in that #1 movie, they brought Welles in. And yeah, then Welles, of course, said, oh, this book is crap. I had to redo everything and I had to change everything. But he brought all these people came along because Orson Welles.
Yeah, because Orson Welles. So now we have these. With. Yeah. So the cast in this is super good.
Yeah. All right, so Margot, let's begin this way, actually. Let's start with the original 1958 trailer. You're going to hear how awesome it is, but also when you see the trailer, you know, like you're in for something special.
Mm-hmm.
This was her wedding night. Where was the man she had married? Who were these hoodlums?
Hold her legs.
Starring this outstanding cast: Charlton Heston, Janet Lee.
I could love being corny if my husband would only cooperate.
Orson Welles, co-starring Joseph Kalea, Akim Tamirov, with guest stars Marlene Dietrich, Zsa Zsa Gabor.
What are you trying to do?
We're trying to strap you in the electric chair, boy.
Only the offbeat, original, creative powers of Orson Welles could bring you so suspenseful, so gripping, so different a drama of love threatened by vengeance.
Mike may be spoiling some of your fun.
Mike?
My husband, yeah. And if you're trying to scare me into calling him off, let me tell you something, Mr. Grandy. I may be scared, but he won't be.
Of a struggle between titans.
You framed that boy. Framed him!
Of a manhunt like nothing you've ever experienced.
Oh, God, now. I'm a husband. What did you do with her? Where is my wife? My wife!
So Orson Welles plays Captain Quinlan. Charlton Heston was rewritten as a Mexican.
Okay, so I have some questions. There's a few. Okay, So the book, as we said, was set in San Diego, which is already a border city. But the setting has changed to a place I would say is more akin, if those of you who are familiar with Southern California, is more akin to Mexicali, and there's these two border towns. One's on the Mexico side, one's on the U.S. side. One is Mexicali, and the other, it's called like Cali-Mex, but they're both they have like sister names,
right?
And the communities, it's basically kind of like in a lot of ways, it's like one community even now. And so the border was sort of a fluid thing. People would go back and forth all day long, and so it's a unique kind of backdrop in a different way than San Diego would be, is what I'm trying to say. So rather than, and I mean, it's an interesting angle. I don't know that it was like absolutely necessary to do. But okay, Orson Welles. So we have,
right.
Okay. So we have, let's just get it out of the way. We have Charlton Heston in brown face. Just going to put it out there. He's not the only one. We've also got Marlene Dietrich, and we have a few actors who are browned up for this. But on the other hand, he's not talking like Speedy Gonzalez or anything like that. He's just talking like Charlton Heston.
Right.
And I want to say, too, like, we talked about Charlton Heston a very long time ago when we talked about Planet of the Apes.
Yes.
You and I, but it's important to bring up because especially for this movie, I think it's really important that you and I, when we think of Charlton Heston, we think of From My Cold Dead Hands, Mr.
NRA.
Gunn, Mr. NRA, very conservative, very like outspoken against, I'm being super blunt here. Outspoken against rap culture, Black culture. He thought of it as sort of like thugs and anti-police. He didn't like F the Police, the song, and super gunny, super like big pals with, or I think he was super close with Reagan, but very like of that ilk. Charlton Heston, when this film is being made, is a complete 180 from the Charlton Heston that you and I knew growing up. Charlton Heston, at the time that Touch of Evil is made, is a total like progressive, liberal Democrat to the hilt. And not only, he appeared in front of Congress to speak for gun control. The same dude who was like, from my cold dead hands with his rifle. This guy was Mr. Gun Control when this movie is being made, and was very much committed to fighting racism, fighting inequality. I mean, just like a very different Charlton Heston.
He was pro-union. He marched for civil rights in D.C. He knew Martin Luther King. He did all those things in the 60s. I mean, there's a few people that then kind of, we did an episode of What a Creep about the NRA, and the NRA at first was about gun safety, like responsible gun ownership, especially for hunters and people who kept guns in their homes. And he was a part of that. It's sad because Bowling for Columbine is one of the last times he's on screen, and it's sort of, Michael Moore is a whole other category person we could talk about.
Yeah.
But he's been reduced to that. Like that became his identity in the last
his legacy now.
Right.
Yeah. He kind of, I guess it was during the Nixon administration, he kind of took that off ramp into
a lot of people did.
Neocon land. But at the time that Touch of Evil is made, he is very much about social justice. He's very much about fighting racism and gun control. So in this movie, he's the protagonist. He's made up in brown face. He is, but he's playing this. He's playing he's the white hat in the film. He's the uncorruptible cop. He's an attorney. He's high up in the Mexican government. His reach is limited because he's dealing with criminals that are going back and forth across the border. So he can only do so much under his own jurisdiction. And he is married to an American woman, Janet Leigh, and I love them as a couple. I think they're great in this movie. They have great chemistry.
Right.
Super good.
This is pre-Psycho Janet Leigh, 34 years old. She's from Philadelphia. They're newlyweds. When we meet them in this version, there's this 4 to 5 minute crane shot of the movie that when the movie was released in 1958, it was chopped up and it was restored in 1998, which was the first time I ever saw it was on a big screen, and it was the real version that Welles wanted. It's magnificent. It is wonderful. The look of this movie is just gobsmacking. It's good.
And there's a reason why film students study this film. I mean, it has a lot of brilliant, especially if you look at it after like a Citizen Kane, which is revolutionary in terms of angles and lighting and using the cinematography to tell the story and all of that. This is such an evolution from that. It's just brilliant. And people write whole theses and papers just about that opening shot.
Credits, yeah. Or about the use of
just
light.
About the
Pues que quiere, señor, eh?
¿Dónde está mi esposa? Hablen feliz. Hablen feliz. Te estrangulo, huh?
Oh, talk English, can't you?
Listen, I'm no cop now. I'm a husband. What did you do with her? Where's my wife? My wife!
Margos! It's your wife, Margos. They picked her up.
What do you mean, picked her up?
The Vice Squad.
Quinlan?
You better come outside with me, amigo.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, we're in there's very few daytime scenes in this movie. It's a lot of nighttime, dusk, dawn. Because again, we're looking at the underbelly of law enforcement and, this criminal underworld that's going on. Charlton Heston, who is very handsome with a mustache, I must say, like,
just a handsome
I don't know why
guy.
he wasn't always rocking. Yeah. He's a very good looking man.
Yeah.
He just looks amazing. And he's got this beautiful, immaculate suit the whole time. Janet Leigh is always kind of in white, so they are this like beautiful, angelic couple. And then you have Orson Welles, who was Quinlan, the head cop, the bad cop. And it's not McCoy. His name is something else in this. It's also with an M. Menzies is
which I don't know if they knew
partner.
what that word meant when they put that
I know, I thought that too. Like, okay.
A second, like, okay. Yeah, that's Joseph Paella. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, he's really super good.
So good.
And then we have the government officials too, who are trying to figure out like what to do. And,
we should say
everybody's got a reputation to protect here.
What we see is this gorgeous shot, and it's Janet Leigh and Charlton Heston just walking and being sexy and doing their thing. And they're going through the border, and they go right up to the border, not in a car, but just themselves holding hands. And he's going to get her a chocolate soda. She said, it's been too long since I've kissed you. And as soon as they kiss, boom. And there's this car that drives by him at one point, and a woman with this accent is like, I hear a ticking sound. Do you? It's just like in the book. They open with an explosion, but this time it's in a car. And it's some politician,
which is a cool device.
Yes.
I really like it a lot. I think it's very good. Yeah, he's like a politician. He's a developer or something. He's got some kind of a financial interest going on there on the Mexico side, but he's also a man with a lot of power on the United States side.
I should say also, I find the story very hard to keep track of. I think I'm more of like, it's just for me a lot of scenes with characters and they're doing cool things, but I find it a little challenging.
Yeah, it's a lot of that.
It's a lot of that. But let's just go through the cast really quick. So we have Joanne Moore as Lineker. That's his name. She's the daughter. Dennis Weaver is the night manager. We talked about him when we talked about Duel.
He's hilarious in this.
Good.
He's such a good actor. He's
Underrated.
super good. He was so awesome in Duel.
He was. We have people like Zsa Gabor is a strip club owner. Beautiful, by the way.
She's there for a second. She's absolutely gorgeous. She lights up the screen. She says like 3 words.
It's like a cameo.
Perfect.
A lot of these people were, in his coterie of friends, and they worked together in radio. They worked together in theater. They worked for scale. That's why he could get all these people on their small little budget. Joseph Cotton is in this movie. Mercedes McCambridge. We talked about her. We talked about The Exorcist.
I mean,
just unbelievable people in this.
It's a great cast.
It really, really is. So it opens with this mystery. Who set the bomb? And then we get Orson Welles, and Orson Welles is Quinlan. The man has just drank too much and ate too much and just lived really hard his whole life.
It's been a long life for Detective Quinlan.
Who's probably only in his 50s, but
yeah. He's at one point we see him and Menzies. Sorry,
I'm a child.
He and Menzies are in a bar, and we find out that Quinlan's Orson Welles. Quinlan's played by Orson Welles, who was a plus size gentleman, and the storyline in the movie is that Quinlan used to be a very serious alcoholic, and gave up alcohol and took up candy bars,
which happens.
Which happens because that's to sugar. Exactly.
Yeah.
You have those sugar cravings. This case has him so upset that he starts to drink again. And that's a very big plot point. And his partner, Menzies, is just despondent about the fact that his old friend is back on the sauce. And when he's drunk, Orson Welles starts talking about he had a wife who was strangled. And apparently like this, they had just been married. He was very, very young, and his wife is murdered. And the man who he thinks murdered his wife, who is not white. So that's part of the reason he suspected this particular person. He never was able to prove that this guy killed his wife, but then the man he suspected was killed anyway in World War I. So this is like 40 years ago. It's a long grudge.
Yeah.
But it's like it happened yesterday for this guy. And so he's very upset, and he's thinking about it. And his partner's like, oh man, friend, I wish you weren't going through this. And maybe let's just like sleep this off and get back to things tomorrow. So in the movie, Quinlan is the cop. Quinlan of the 2 cops is the one who's not on the up and up. And Menzies is his partner and friend who really loves him and is really supporting him and cares for him, sort of knows that he's crooked, but also is kind of ignoring the fact of what he knows, because he cares for his friend and he's trying to take care of him. And meanwhile, Janet Leigh is being bandied about by this gang of thugs that her husband is, this crime family that her husband is in the process of prosecuting.
Right. He's prosecuting their family. So Welles really wanted to include Mexican Americans in the cast, and it was important to him to talk about the racism that's going on, the police force that was completely in the pocket of themselves, basically. And so Quinlan he's kind of a mess. He's somebody who's, like you said, just fell off the wagon as he's dealing with this case. He plants evidence. He plants dynamite in a shoebox that was found empty just a few minutes before. Vargas is like, I know what you're doing. And he's saying, oh, you're Mexican. That's why you're saying that. You're more loyal to your people than to our people. So it's also this dividing up. What I think is kind of hilarious is that Vargas is very smart and can do anything. It is super. But a second, like there's the explosion, he says to his wife, okay, you got to go. Go to that hotel and just hang out.
Go to the hotel owned by the crime family I'm prosecuting. Just hang there. You'll be fine.
Lock the door. Nothing will happen to
Okay.
you. Okay. But she's so believable. I mean, it's so she's in this she's in this dilapidated hotel, motel, whatever it is. It's not an Airbnb. And she hears noises and she's trying to stay still and then somebody starts.
It's a hovel.
It's a hovel.
And she learns right after. This is the part that I was like, come on, because it's established that her character, Janet Leigh's character in this, is very street smart.
Yes,
She's
and tough.
not and tough. And, right at the beginning of the film, she gets hauled in front. She gets basically kidnapped by this crime family and menaced by them. And she is not bothered they try to blackmail her. She's like, what are you even doing? So her husband sends her to this hotel that's owned by this family. How does he not know that? I don't know, but okay. And shortly after she arrives, she's told by the quote unquote front desk clerk, who's one of these thugs, that she's the only guest in the building. No red flags there.
By the way, 2 years later, she's in Psycho.
Why are you going to hotels?
Do you
Why are
think
you going
Janet
to hotels?
Leigh
Get out of there.
avoided motels like the rest of her life? Just like.
Well, they said she never took a shower again.
Right.
Right. But did she continue to stay in hotels and motels? I don't know.
Yeah.
So she's totally vulnerable. Thanks to her husband.
Yes.
And
unarmed.
And I mean, she is just like in the book, they drug her and try to set it up like not only that she is a junkie and involved in this criminal underworld, but also Quinlan is trying to frame her for murder. I don't think is in the book at all. I don't think it goes as far as that in the book, but that's the fatal mistake. So Quinlan is starting to feel the heat because Vargas, played by Charlton Heston, is onto his crooked cop ways and is like, look, I can prove it. I've got the records. Like, it's kind of a coincidence that this evidence showed up in this case and that evidence showed up in that case. And oh, you just happened to find dynamite at the home of such and such, the guy who you're trying to accuse of dynamiting that car, when I have this receipt that says that you, Quinlan, bought dynamite yourself. And so he's got all the receipts. And Quinlan's starting to feel the heat. And so what does he do? He goes after Janet Leigh. And he now goes in with the crime family. He's now partnering with them, it seems. And they frame Janet Leigh, and Orson Welles, spoiler alert, he kills one of the leaders of that crime family, strangles him. He has earlier described strangling as the perfect crime that you can't pin on people.
Not true.
He strangles this. Not true, but okay. He strangles this guy and tries to make it look like Janet Leigh was the one who did it. But
because she's a tough girl.
Dun, dun, dun. He left his cane at the scene of the crime.
That's right. I think there's scenes that are so terrifying here, by the way. Like when Dennis Weaver is surrounded by the
There's
gang.
a lot of there's a lot of suspense and scary stuff without anything actually happening.
Right.
It's just the threat of it. And you are so freaked out as an audience member. It's like, oh, just get out of there. Just run away. Don't stick around.
Yes. Don't
stop
open the
talking
door.
to these people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At one point, Janet Leigh is in the hotel and there's a person knocking on the door on the wall next to her and is whispering to her. And she's like, oh, hey, how you doing? So she,
like, girl, run.
But
But
I guess it doesn't matter because the police are corrupt. I mean, it's sort of, but so Charlton Heston is tracking down all these leads. He's helping to get Janet Leigh out. Also, Quinlan is visiting his old girlfriend, Marlene Dietrich, or Paramore.
Yeah, Marlene Dietrich, and we're not sure like what her and again we have Zsa Zsa Gabor playing a stripper burlesque performer. She only comes out for a few seconds and says a couple of lines, but she's not pretending to have she's not doing the Speedy Gonzalez accent. Nobody is really.
No.
She has her own Hungarian accent. And then similarly, Marlene Dietrich, although she is browned up, for this film, she's not putting on any kind of phony accent either, but we are led to believe that she definitely has some kind of a history, cares for Quinlan also too, just like Menzies. She really cares about him and is really like, dude, you don't seem okay. Like, I'm a little worried about you, Quinlan. You don't seem right in the head anymore.
We're closed.
You've been cooking at this hour?
Just cleaning up.
Oh. Have you forgotten your old friend?
I told you we were closed.
I'm Hank Quinlan.
I didn't recognize you. You should lay out those candy bars.
It's either the candy or the hooch. Must say, I wish it was your chili I was getting fat on. Anyway, you're sure looking good.
You're a mess, honey.
Yeah. That being old sure brings back memories.
The customers go for it. It's so old, it's new. We got the television, too. We run movies. What can I offer you?
You haven't heard anything about that bomb, have you?
That happened on your side of the border.
In a place like this, you hear things.
I heard the explosion.
Well, when this case is over, I must come around some night, sample some of your chili.
Better be careful. Maybe too hot for you.
Oh, hey.
So she is, she's sort of sheltering him, I think we can say.
Yeah, I love it when he comes there to ask about his future because she's a fortune teller, and she's basically saying, like, I don't see a future for you. You are a huge mess. What is it with the acid attack? I had that written in my notes.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so you have Charlton Heston Vargas. He's the law on the Mexican side he's the uncorruptible law on the Mexican side of the border. There's this secondary plot that he is prosecuting the head of this crime family. While the head of the crime family is in custody, the de facto head of the crime family is this kind of bumbling brother of the head. The brother is in charge of his nephews who are young and dumb and take crazy risks. And they, on their own, the nephews, they're the ones who kind of start menacing Janet Leigh. And one of these nephews decides to, because his dad is in custody because of Vargas, he takes it upon himself to try to throw acid on Vargas and, scar him for life. But he misses. And when that happens, his uncle, who's, again, the de facto head of the crime family, is like, dude, you can't do that. You can't do that, because if you take this guy out, then your dad is totally sunk. Like, your dad is never coming out of jail. Like, he's our only hope. He really needs to stay alive. So stop, trying to kill this guy. That's not the way out of this mess.
The key to this whole thing is the dynamite. The killer didn't just want Lineker dead, he wanted him destroyed, annihilated.
Over here, Vargas. We're going in the back way. Senor Vargas. Senor Vargas. Yes? Anything wrong, Vargas?
No, I just couldn't catch him.
But yeah, it's a super scary scene. The kid jumps out of nowhere and throws the thing, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's acid.
We should say it's just a beautiful looking film. The Henry Mancini does the soundtrack. It's fantastic. The use of light is incredible. The use of different perspectives on the different people. It's just gorgeous to watch. Even though I don't understand everything that's happening sometimes, I'm just so like absorbed in it. I almost just don't even care. I do like it when Quinlan's being kind of lured into a conversation. So, Heston records him, and that's his evidence against him. Janet Leigh is then released, and then Quinlan gets shot by Vargas.
Yes. So, okay.
Menzies shoots Quinlan. Sorry.
Vargas? I got a feeling he's someplace around here. Close to me. I got a hunch.
Why, Vargas? Why should he?
You sound kind of nervous, Pete. You know, I game leg. He's starting to talk to me. Vargas. Maybe he's tailing me with the bug. Recording. Hey, are you carrying a bug for him? A microphone? Don't lie to me.
All right. No, you better give me that gun.
Where is he? Where is he?
How did you figure to frame Vargas with it?
Framed? Who's been framed? Where is he? Vargas?
Where is he? Hank, look, Hank.
I'm talking to Vargas now. Vargas? You hear me? I'm talking to you. Through this walking microphone that you to work for me.
No, I ain't working for Vargas. I'm working for the department, Hank. Better give me Vargas's gun.
It's okay. Here it is. Give it to me. Vargas!
So Quinlan is going to shoot Vargas and then say it's self-defense. Okay, so that's why Menzies shoots him. And then, but it also breaks his heart because that's his friend.
Yeah, that's his friend. He's been protecting this whole time. They're fighting, and Quinlan shoots Menzies first.
Okay. Oh, and
so we think the audience thinks he's dead, and you're like, oh man, now what? He's never going to be held accountable. He's going to kill his friend and pin it on Vargas.
Right.
And so then he and Vargas start fighting. He shoots at Vargas and misses. Menzies shoots him and kills him. But it's sort of like to also save him in a way from having to be held to account for all of the rotten things he did.
Yeah, he'd be in jail forever if not executed. Right. And then Vargas is reunited with Susie from Philadelphia. And Tana has the great line. That's Marlena Dietrich.
She gets the last line.
And
it's great.
Did you care about him? Well, as much as you can care about anybody. You know, just sort of like that droll. What are you going to do? She's great. I mean,
she's really good in this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's really good in this. All of the all of the little thug characters, like the nephews who are this little gang of like toughs. They're all super good. A lot of them don't even have any lines, but they're acting up a storm, and everybody, like there's this guy early on when they're driving out to Lineker. So Lineker, as I said, is a developer. And so they're driving out to see Lineker's daughter after the initial explosion at the beginning of the movie. And there's just a guy who's working there on the development, and Quinlan is like immediately pegs him for an ex-con. And they have this little exchange through the car window. And that guy's amazing, too. Everybody is so good in this.
Yeah. Well, it's filled with, Wells players, basically.
Yeah.
It comes out, and unfortunately for him, so when they're in the process of editing the movie, the studio didn't understand. They're getting this art house picture, and they're like, no, we wanted those, crimey things we've been doing.
We wanted Kitten with a Whip. What are you doing?
What are you doing? You're killing us here. And Orson Welles, being Orson Welles, he had an issue with finishing things. Like, he just would kind of leave a project. So he was off in South America, I believe, working on a project. And they took his movie and brought it down to like 92 minutes, like very short. And
he must have had like a Mexico thing going on at the time, because he goes farther into Mexico.
Oh, yeah.
To do, I think, Don Quixote, which is not a Mexican story, it's a Spanish story. But yeah, I seem to remember something about like he really wanted to do a film about that book. And it was a thing that he kind of pursued for a long time, and nothing really came out of it. But anyway, they're like, yeah, Orson, we need you to cut. Okay, great. You shot the movie. We need you to cut it now. And he's like, gotta go do Don Quixote, and I'll be in Mexico City. See ya. Bye. And so they're like, okay, well then I guess we have to cut it. And so they cut it. Then he's not happy about it.
He had a 58-page memo when he saw it.
Who writes a 58-page memo?
It's a typewriter.
In typewriter days.
Typewriter days, y'all. That's what he did. I'm sure he had a secretary. I'm sure he had somebody that he would, But so he writes this 58-page memo and says, you got it all. So for the opening credits, they put titles over it. They put Mancini's score on top of the sounds of the people. It's just... the difference is incredible, like just the original version of it, because you see nothing. It's just them. And then they get into the credits in the movie. It's just beautiful. But he had like all these different ideas and things to do and how to change it. And there were all over the year. It did okay, by the way. It did like $2.5 million.
But I mean, look, so stick around and finish your movie.
Yes.
Dude.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, it is on him. But he kind of like goes through his whole life. Like when you and I know him, when he dies in 85. Like before that, we're kids, but we used to see him on talk shows. And it was always like, the studio screwed me over with this, and I've always wanted to do that, and I'm a genius, and people don't appreciate me. And here's my wine commercial. We'll serve no wine before it's time. He had that amazing voice. I think he did the Muppet Show. He was in the Muppet
movie.
Yeah, he's a character.
Yeah, he was just people just knew him, as this personality. I'm trying to think of like, I can't really think of somebody like him today, but he would be on Dick Cavett and Mike. He would just go on all the shows and make the rounds and tell his amazing stories, and every now and again show up in a commercial or the Muppet movie.
He was married several times to like supremely beautiful women, very famous movie stars. He dies, I said, in 85. And then somebody gets that original memo and says, what if we just do everything he said? And really, because the art house...
We have the technology.
We can build it. We can make it stronger. It's 1998. Everyone's going to art house movies. It's becoming the thing to do. It's the cool kids thing to do. So they take all of his instructions and they actually recreate this picture. It's now 108 minutes and it has everything that he wanted in there. And it does extremely well, and it's been doing well ever since the DVD releases. It's always in the top film noirs of all time. It's always on the Criterion channel.
And again, this is like way after like the classic film noir period.
Right.
And it is super, super good. It's a little hard to get past the brown face, but other than that, I think it's an interesting backdrop for the story. You could have kept it in the United States and had the crooked cop and the not crooked DA and all of that, but setting it where he sets it, throws the racism angle in, a little more clearly. Yeah, it's way good. I really enjoyed it. And like you said, it's not like the story is such a brilliant story. It's these moments with these actors just doing their thing that is so fun to watch.
Watching Mercedes McCambridge play a lesbian gang member.
Is it? I had forgotten that she was in this movie. And when she showed up, I was like, yeah.
They're old friends. Like I said, they all did it for scale. For the union wages, because they just believed in him.
Oh, she's so good in it. Everybody is every stripper, with the one line, every one of the gang thugs and their girlfriends, like they're all so good. It's super, super fun. What a fun movie.
It's great. I think so. Book versus movie. It's obviously going to be movie for me because.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I think it makes more sense. It makes me question, like in the book, why the head cop was not the crooked one, because the movie is so much more interesting that it's Quinlan and not his partner who is the one planting evidence. But anyway, I think the choices on the whole are very good choices. They make it for a very interesting story. And the beats and the main plot points are all still here. And one other extra thing, which I think is really great, and I don't think this is in the book, is after all of this rigmarole, framing the daughter's boyfriend with the dynamite and everything. And now both the crooked cop and his best friend are now dead. And Janet Leigh has been put through hell, and all of the stuff that's happened to prove that the evidence had been planted to frame this boyfriend. Turns out the boyfriend did it. I mean, come on. That's just like the icing on the cake. It's great. I love it.
Yeah, it wasn't really nominated for anything. It did fine. It did good business, and then it showed on the Late Show. But I think the original way it was put together was confusing to people, and so it really helps. It's more well-rounded. Yeah,
that's true. We are looking at not the version that people would have seen in the movie theater. That's a good point.
Yeah, but I loved it. This was so fun.
Yeah, totally movie. The book is a fun pulp fiction book. It is not great literature. But it's fun.
It's fun.
And it's fun. But the movie is really great. The movie is even more fun.
It's a classic for a reason.
It is. Now we have a really great choice for our next movie. I'm very excited.
We're going to be talking about Rear Window, the Alfred Hitchcock classic. It is based on a short story. Margot and I got
the book that you very kindly sent me. It's called Adaptations from Short Story to Big Screen, 35 Great Stories That Have Inspired Great Films. It's an anthology compiled by Stephanie Harrison.
We're going to be covering next. It's Rear Window. The short story that it's based on is from Cornell Woolrich. It Had to Be Murder. It came in 1942. It's also pretty easy to get on Kindle or on your Libby app. I was checking that around, but it's only like 45 pages, so it's perfect. And I told you, I've seen this movie so many times, I could probably recite it to you right now.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Raymond Burr alone. I can't wait. I cannot wait.
I was talking about this movie with friends of mine. We went out for drinks last week, and we were talking about how Grace Kelly worked so hard to get Jimmy Stewart's attention throughout the movie. We'll talk about this more, but it's like, does he not have eyes? Like,
I know.
That's Grace Kelly wooing you.
Kelly, by the way. Yeah. Oh my God. Did you see what she's wearing? What is going on? I mean, tell me you're not interested without telling me you're not interested.
Yeah. But we'll get get into that next week.
Can't wait.
Absolutely. And please, like we said, send us your suggestions and please follow us on all the places. Also, that helps us as well to find our people. That would be amazing. And Margot, where can they find you?
You can find me online at coloniabook.com, and all of my social media callouts are at She's Not Your Mama. And where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Brooklyn Margot. I am on Instagram at Brooklyn Fit Chick, and my site is Brooklyn Fit Chick, and I am on TikTok at Margot Donahue. Let's meet soon for Rear Window. Thank you so much for listening to the Book versus Movie podcast. We are a part of the Frolic Podcast Network. You can find more podcasts you will love at frolic.media/podcasts. We follow the hashtags LadyPodSquad and Podern Family. If you want to support the show, you can go to our Patreon page, go to Patreon, and look for Book versus Movie Podcast. We have a basic Facebook page, but we also have a private Facebook group. Go to Facebook and type in Book vs. Movie Podcast group if you want to join that. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Book versus Movie. Spell all those words out.